Get some help, Dan Miragliotta. Are you kidding me? What a terrible, terrible performance by Dan Miragliotta. You should be ashamed of yourself. Ashamed. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers. We have a crazy card here. UFC 282, a pay-per-view, 14 fights. Cannot wait to break it down. As always, I am here with Uncle Weezy. Weezy, what is up? How are you doing? You looking forward to the card this week?
Yeah, man, this is a fantastic card of 14 fights. It's going to start off with some prospects that we don't really know a lot about, you know, the first 4 or 5 fights, but exciting prospects. Cam Simon. We got a juicehead in Tricoli coming in here. We got Raul Rosas, who's only 18 years old. And then there's a couple more too. Vinicius Salvador, Eric Silva. So it's going to be a really fun bottom half of the card. And then you get up to the top half of the card, and there's just a ton of name value with the Action Man and Buckley, Quarantillo against Hernandez, Shabazian against Dalcha, Rozenstruik Daukaus, Till du Plessis, Mitchell Topuria. I mean, and then there's 3 more fights. So I think it's a great pay-per-view card. I think it's a great way to end the year. It's not the last card of the year, but it's the last pay-per-view of the year. Unfortunately, a Magomed Ankalaev main event is never anything that's going to get anybody really extremely excited, but he's got a chance to be champion now. So it's going to be a fun card to break down.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody was really looking forward to the Glover-Yuri rematch there. And then, here we got to watch a Magomed Ankalaev main events. They have not been good thus far, but maybe he turns it around here. We'll have to see. Do want to shout out the chat. As always, before we get started, we got Ollie one, first one in the chat. We got Mushroom as well. We got Victor in the chat. We have Melon. We got Propaholic. We got Dan Goldstein, DXJC. Aussie UFC picks. We got Justin in the chat. We got Jan, Jeremiah, Brandon, Andy, Jeff, Pink. Shout out to all you guys in the chat. Leave a like, subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. But I say we get right into it. A lot to talk about. We have a 14-fight card, and the first of the 14 fights is we have Cameron Simon going against Steven Kozlow. We have Simon, who is 21 years old, 5'8" with a 67-inch reach. Kozlow, he is 25 years old, 5'7" there. So Simon is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He made his Contender Series debut against Josh Wang Kim, and he won that fight. I believe it was a 3rd round knockout there. And then Steven Kozlow is making his debut on short notice. Do you remember who Simon was supposed to fight?
That's on Tapology. I forgot who he was supposed to fight,
yeah,
but I can while you're talking about it, I can figure it
out.
But
I guess the one thing that stuck out, because I did dive pretty deep into this matchup for Contender Series with Simon and Kim, was just the level of competition of Simon. I mean, there's not a ton of footage out there on him, but he's fighting some of the weirdest names I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he's fought guys like Rovan De Beer. He's fought guys like Korn Blom. I mean, just some of the most interesting names out there and just very low level of competition. But the guy looks like a killer. He's only 21 years old, hits very, very hard, but there's still a ton of question marks about this guy. Kozlow, kind of same thing. You don't know a ton about this guy because there's not much footage. I think there's only like 2 or 3 fights, very low level stuff that I was able to watch. 2 of those fights were amateur fights, but he's going out there. He's getting takedowns. I've seen no striking whatsoever. Haven't seen a ton. Not even sure what the odds are on this one, but it's not really a fight you can really bet on. I mean, there's just not a ton of info really on either guy. So you're kind of going in blind with this matchup. I guess I lean Simon because I really do like what I see with the guy on the feet, but I have question marks about his takedown defense and just the question marks in general about this fight. So give me Simon for the knockout. The guy looks legit on the feet, but we'll talk about the price tag in a little bit. Whatever it is, I'm probably not paying it for Simon here. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I mean, you got a 21-year-old against a 25-year-old. And like you said, I mean, neither one of these guys has really fought anybody except for we can watch this Simon fight against Josh Wang Kim. And Wang Kim's a good prospect, good, well-rounded fighter, pretty spectacular at times, actually. But yeah, Simon got that 3rd round knockout against him. But with Kozlow, we got a guy that we're getting on short notice here. So that's something we got to take into account. Hang on. Excuse me. And Kozlov's entire pro career of 6 fights, it spans less than 15 minutes. So you want to talk about missing information. You got a ton of missing information right there. He's dick sawing a bunch of 0-0 guys in on the regional scene. James Dunn, Marcelo Willian, Anthony Redditch, Ginseng de Jour, and Jonathan Ortiz. And then you mentioned the list of names for Cameron Simon: Zwei and Gema, Billy Oosthuizen, Roven de Beer, Sindali Maningela, and then Josh Wang Kim. So fun stuff there, but I mean, there's just not a lot of information on this fight. Kozlov has won all of his fights by submission. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player, a 10th Planet guy. I believe he's 10th Planet Jacksonville is where he fights out of. So yeah, it should be a fun, kind of like a all-around striker, all-around guy like Saman, who's got a little bit of everything in his back pocket, going up against a pure grappler coming in on short notice, who I don't think he's ever been out of the first round. So yeah, I mean, this fight probably doesn't go to decision, and it's probably Simon, just because we know a little bit more about this kid. Trains at Team CIT with Dricus du Plessis, and it should be a fun fight to start the card, but I don't think I'm going to be getting my money anywhere near it.
Yeah, just probably want to be wise. And I'm taking a look at the line here for the first time, and we do have Simon opened up -150, currently -260. Kozlov opened up +130, currently +220. Probably not something you really want to lay -260 on, but yeah, I'll pick him to win. What do you think of that line, Weezy?
Yeah, I mean, -260 on a 21-year-old kid from South Africa. That's something that I'm not going to do, but this kid looks good.
He does.
It's just that, the missing information is a big thing when you're a gambler. You want to have at least some kind of eyes on the fighters that you're betting on and against. And in this case, there's just not a lot of tape to go on. You could watch Stephen Kozlov's entire pro career quicker than you could watch an episode of The Simpsons. So there's just not, missing information. I'm staying away from it. Gonna really enjoy this fight though, because it should be, fight doesn't go to decision or under 2.5 here. It'd probably be a fantastic look.
Yep. Neither guy has lost inside the distance, but neither guy has fought anybody really that good.
Neither guy has lost.
Yeah, their wins. What?
Neither guy is lost.
Yes. Yeah, neither guy's lost or lost inside the distance, but their wins, 11 out of 12, have finished inside the distance. And then we have that stylistic matchup where you have the striker versus the grappler. I think violence is probably the best way to go here.
Absolutely. I think that's the best way to play this one, but it's going to be a fun way to start the card here.
Absolutely. All right, let us keep moving on. We have a fight that I could really care less about. We have OSP Oven State Peru going against Antonio Tricoli. Wasn't OSP supposed to? Who's he supposed to fight? Another.
So Simon was supposed to fight Ronnie Lawrence. So that would have been a fun one. And then St. Preux had 2 different opponents. He was supposed to fight Gustafsson and Felipe Lin. So this will be the 3rd iteration of the Oven St. Preux fight that nobody gives a shit about, Brady.
Nobody gives one shit about this one here. But OSP is 39 years old. He's 6'3" with an 80-inch reach. Tricoli, 31 years old, 6'5" with an 82-inch reach. Tricoli, 8 years younger with a 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. OSP 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Decision loss against Ben Rothwell. Knockout win against Alonzo Menefield. A knockout loss to Jamal Hill and Tanner Bozer, and then a split decision over Shogun. Tricoli is 3-1 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights. This is just a mess. I mean, I would bet pretty much anybody over OSP at this point of his career, but Tricoli, he's not good. He's like you said, he's a juice head, right? He got he won on the Contender Series, right, and then he got suspended.
Yeah, and he pissed hot for what I think is a competition steroid. I don't know if our guy Patrick Addicted to Combat is in the chat right now, but that dude his science mind is amazing, and when he can actually tell us what like the name of the steroid and tell us like what the nature of it is, because of his science background, and I looked into it a little bit. It looked like a straight up competition steroid. It starts with a D and it ends with own. which usually is a good competition steroid. So yeah, he got caught. And dude, this guy, Brady, he used to fight at 170. And then I think he just got sick of being a skinny, tall dude and said, I'm going to juice the fuck up, and went from 170 to 205 in 1 year, put on a bunch of muscle mass. So that's what we're dealing with here against an older Ovin St. Preux at 39 years old right now.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like it's a 1-800-gambler fight. I mean, I just don't really want anything to do with this fight. Was it like Tiger Blood or something, or was it not?
Yeah, dude. I mean, I looked it up on Google, and it's definitely a competition steroid. It's not like, when Bresky got caught, he got caught doing an estrogen masker, which is what you do when you come off of the steroids. You start to mask the estrogen that's now going to be like created in your system as a result of not being on the steroids anymore. And this guy got caught with like a competition steroid, which meant he wasn't even coming off of this cycle. He was still on it. And he won with a neck crank. He just got a squeeze on the guy's face and he had to tap. So yeah, the dude was juiced to the gills coming into that fight. And then he's been off for a couple of years. And then this guy that he beat, Resley Isael, is a fat guy. He was like a 5'8", 205er who was somehow 7-1. I would have loved to seen this guy's wins. I would have been laughing my ass off. But yeah, we have no information on this Tricoli. What I've seen, Brady, he's a pure grappler. He's going to look to take your back. He's going to look to take you down. He's going to try to choke you out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even have anything to say about this one. I mean, I have no interest in betting it. In terms of a pick, like I don't even know what I'm going to pick here. Just due to the fact that OSP's looked atrocious, like absolutely atrocious lately, like horrible. And then you have Tricoli, who doesn't look great in his own right, but he is younger. And it's a pick 'em. It's -110 each way. You lean in any strong way here, or
we give St. Preux that nice experience advantage. He's a little bit better of a finisher overall than this guy Tricoli, and Tricoli's fighting bums anyway. Tricoli's got some losses to some real guy. Dude, I think was he the guy that had fought Jacob Volkman back in the day? Let me look here. Tricoli's got losses to guys that I think I've heard of before. Maybe it's somebody. Yeah, Diego Lima and Jacob Volkman back in 2016 when this guy was a 170er. He's a 6'4", 170er. How the fuck was he making that weight? And then he has to take steroids to get up to 205? Come on, man. So, yeah, dude, this guy, he's been around for a long time, but he's fought once since the year 2020 started. Massive missing information. Don't really know if Ovin St. Preux gives a shit at this point. I mean, he's kind of just probably fighting out his contract at this point. If this guy wasn't on a contract, would you fucking re-sign him? I wouldn't.
No.
So, I mean, I don't know what they're doing here, but maybe they're going to try to find this kid Tricoli a win. He's only 31. He's young for the division, 6'5", 82-inch reach. So, and he's a good grappler. He is a decent grappler. That's his strength. And St. Preux's been 68% takedown defense, 1.5 takedowns allowed per 15 minutes, 21% control time allowed. And if he makes St. Preux work, he'll probably tire him out too. So, I mean, maybe Tricoli, but dude, I'm not betting this fight.
No, I'm picking Tricoli to win the fight, but you will not see me betting it. Like, even though props would really stick out, like I could see this being a horrible fight that goes to decision. I could see a finish as well. No strong lean on really anything. So I think I'm going to pass on this one.
Yeah, it's an Ovin St. Preux fight. I mean, we've been working together for a while, Brady. You and I, we never have any strong leans on this guy's fights, because sometimes he actually looks pretty good. And then sometimes he just looks like he's waiting in line at the DMV in there and he's not doing anything. So, yeah, I'm staying away, dude. The next fight is a lot more compelling.
The next fight is really... They should just take that fight off the card. Like, nobody wants to watch this fight, I don't think. Maybe there's somebody that does, but I don't.
Wouldn't it be great if they canceled and then on Tapology it said, due to total lack of interest?
Yeah, we need that. We need that for some of these matchups. But this one, we will not need it. We have Raul Rosas Jr. going against Jay Perrin. We got Rosas, who is 18 years old, 5'9" with a 67-inch reach. Perrin, 29 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. Raul Rosas Jr. is 11 years younger, and he's going to have a 2-inch height advantage and he's going to be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage. So Rosas is 5-0 in his last 5 fights, and Perrin is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. This is a weird matchup for me because I go and watch Raul Rosas Jr. and he looks phenomenal. He looks very, very, very good. He's going out there. He's fighting smart. He's fighting with a process, a game plan, and that process is getting the fight down to the mat, and he's very good at it. And then you're taking a look at, some of the records of these guys, and it's like 0-2 guys, 0-0 guys, and 1-0 guys, and he's looking very good, but he's just looking very good against very questionable competition. So it's really hard to gauge, especially at 18 years old, how good this guy actually is. I've seen very little striking. I've seen maybe 3 seconds of striking, and it didn't look good. So I have no clue what his striking's like. I have seen him battle very little to no resistance, a little resistance on the Contender Series, where he did get reversed. I think he got his back taken at one point, but I still don't know. This is gonna be a good matchup. It's gonna be a very good test here against Jay Perrin, who's not good, but he's also not bad. He's okay. He has a good cardio. He has good pressure, good pace. Very good takedown defense, a very good get-up game as well. So I think it's a very, very good matchup. We're going to learn a lot about Raul Rosas Jr. here. So we'll talk about the line in a little bit, but Weezy, I'm curious to your thoughts on this one. It's a very intriguing fight.
Yeah, it's a very intriguing fight. This is one of the ones I looked into the most thus far. And, Rosas is another guy that we just don't know much about. 6 fights and only 13 and a half minutes of cage time, So obviously he's going through his opponents like a hot knife through butter. And one of those fights, that's definitely wrong because he's definitely got, it's 13 and a half minutes of cage time on the regional scene, 15 minutes of cage time in the UFC. So 28 minutes total. So we don't know much about him, but what we do know is that Rosas is pretty much a pure grappler. And what I like about Rosas is he fights a style that a pure grappler should. When it's on the feet, I want to see that guy walking forward. I want to see him throwing tons of volume and using that volume, whether it looks good or not, to just get inside, back your opponent's back up to the cage, and then you shoot it on a double leg where they can't back up or sprawl to guard it. And that's exactly how Rosas fights. He throws a ton of volume, he walks forward, and he's usually shooting a takedown. So I believe that Raul Rosas Jr. has 10 rounds that he's fought. And I actually wrote it down. It's in the other room. I don't have it in front of me, but I wrote the second where he shot his first takedown. And in his first 4 fights, it didn't take him 10 seconds in any of those fights to shoot his first takedown. And then in a couple fights after that, the more recent fights, he was waiting 12 or 13 seconds to shoot that first takedown. He's never fucking around on the feet. He's fighting exactly like you would want a pure grappler to fight. So I like the fact that Rosas has a really nice process to the way that he fights. Even though he's very young, even though he's very one-dimensional at this point in his career, he is big, he's strong, he's a very good grappler, and he sucks you in to the grappling exchanges, and he keeps it there. Look at that fight against Mondo Gutierrez. 79.44% control time for, 13% control time against. So that fight, that means that, that it was over 90% of this fight was taking place in control time positions. So Rosas gets the fight that he wants by pushing the style that gets him that fight. Now, Perrin is a guy who's got excellent conditioning, and he mixes in everything really well. Jay is spectacular nowhere, but he's deficient nowhere. He's got good takedown defense, and when he does get taken down, he gets right back up. He's got excellent conditioning. He's got really good boxing. Digs to the body, throws, he's got power in both hands, and he mixes it up really well. Love the way that he varies his strikes, and he gets better as the fight goes on. So this is going to be, Rosas is going to have to get that fight that he wants. And I don't think Jay, A, is going to give him that fight willingly, but B, I think that he's dealing with guys in the gym that are better than what Rosas is. I mean, when you're training with Merab Dvalishvili, that's the exact style that you want to have in a training partner to prepare for this fight. And And, you know, we saw Jay almost get Ari Chilang out of there in the last 10 seconds of the third round of their fight. And he fought Mario Batista on short notice, cut a ton of weight for that fight in a very short period of time. Nobody just goes out there and dick saws Jay Perrin. It's never happened. He's had 16 fights, 154 minutes of cage time, and he's lost 6 fights. But I think 3 of them are split decisions. I think 2 of them are unanimous decisions, and one of them was a guillotine choke in the third round that he tapped to after winning the first 2 rounds of the fight. So this is a great first test for Raul Rosas Jr. here, in that he's getting a guy that has fought 5 rounds 3 different times, maybe even 4 different times in his career. He's been a champion of a couple of regional scene organizations. He's got 3 UFC fights up to this point, and every single one of them has been competitive and close. So I'm leaning Perrin here with the money line where it is. There's a lot of things to like about him. Yeah, if Rosas gets the fight that he wants, yeah, he probably does maybe even submit Perrin or win a unanimous decision just by controlling Jay for a lot of the time. But I don't think Jay's going to make it easy on him to do that. And if Jay gets up every time Raul takes him down, I really fear for what happens in that third round to Raul Rosas Jr. because Raul's going to be the one pushing the pace. He's going to be the one shooting for the takedowns here. And if Jay just keeps making him work, it's going to be Raul who gets tired, not Jay. And we can see what Jay does late in fights. He carries that power late in fights. So I like the spot for Perrin, but I'm really looking forward to seeing Raul Rosas Jr. make his UFC debut because this kid grapples like a man. He's just a kid, but he grapples like a man.
Yeah, he does. He does for sure. I'm ready to be disappointed because I probably will be betting Jay Perrin just due to the fact that there are a lot of question marks on Rosas. This is going to be the toughest test of his career by a mile, just due to the fact that he's not really fought anybody. And then I went and watched Jay Perrin, and like I said, he's not great, but he does a lot of things very well, especially in this matchup. Like his takedown defense is very, very good. But what's even better is that get-up game. So, Rosas can probably take him down, but if Perrin's able to pop back up each time, Rosas, like you said, in that third round, what's he going to look like in that late second round? If Perrin's popping back up, offensive wrestling is very, very tiring. And then on the feet, I don't think Perrin's the best striker, but I got to favor him just due to the fact that I've seen Rosas do literally nothing, and the little things that I have seen have just not been looking good. So I think Rosas is a very, very bright prospect. He's only 18, though. He's coming off the Contender Series, and he's a massive favorite, just a massive favorite. He looks like minus 280. I mean, minus 280 on FanDuel Sportsbook, and Jay Perrin at plus 210. It's a dog spot for me. Like I said, I'm prepared to be disappointed. And Perrin talks a big game. I heard an interview with him saying that, he was stuffing takedowns from Mario Batista. He's stuffing takedowns from Rob. He's winning rounds against Rob, talking crap like that. Which is true. He's training with very good guys. So plus 210, fading a Contender Series guy with a lot of hype at 18 years old. I think I'll have to do it, but we'll see what happens. At the very least, I think it could be a competitive fight where Perrin does get taken down, but he's working really hard to get back up. And like I said, I think a lot of questions are going to be answered in this fight for Rosas, win or loss.
Yeah, look, Jay's a lot more experienced. He's shown excellent conditioning over and over and over and over again, and he's a lot more well-rounded, plain and simple. If this were a 15-minute boxing match, I mean, Perrin would be minus 750. So that's the thing. When you are laying juice, you have to be, and you will be 100%. Look, if you're laying that juice on Raul Rosas, at least you're laying it knowing that kid isn't going to stand in front of Jay Perrin and give him a striking match. Raul Rosas isn't going to do that. But he's got to prove that he can put that pace and that dominant grappling pressure on a UFC veteran and not just some 1-0 mechanic from Tijuana.
Yep, for sure. For sure. All right. It should be a phenomenal matchup here. Let us keep moving on. We have Vinces Salvador going against Daniel Da Silva. We have Salvador is 26 years old, 5'7" with a 70.5-inch reach. Da Silva, 26 years old, 5'6" with a 70-inch reach. We're going to have Salvador with a 1-inch height advantage and a 0.5 inch of reach. Salvador is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. And then De Silva is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Jeff Molina, lost that fight by second round KO, got submitted in the first round by Francisco Figueiredo, and then got knocked out in the first round by Victor Altamirano. This is probably my favorite violent spot on the entire card, which is crazy to say considering these guys are flyweights, but I hit a nice flyweight under last week, hopefully trying to do that again with this one. But I mean, the violence numbers in this fight is just insane. Like, I probably have not seen... You're never going to see flyweight violence numbers like this. So Salvador, 18 fights, 100% finish rate. De Silva, 15 fights, 100% finish rate. De Silva's been finished in all 4 losses. Salvador's been finished in 3 out of 4. So in, 18 plus 23, my math's not great, 33 fights, 32 of them have ended inside the distance. And you can kind of see why. I mean, Daniel De Silva, I don't think this guy is that good. I think he's actually probably one of the worst fighters on the roster in the flyweight division, and I believe he's 0-3. So wait, yeah, he's 0-3, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure why he's not cut. Maybe because he's buddies with Charles Oliveira or what. But I'm shocked he got another opportunity, and I was kind of sad to see he lost the last fight because I thought, dang it, no more violence because I'm cash on violence and on his fights nonstop here against Figueiredo, Altamirano, Molina. They all ended under 1.5 rounds, and I will be hopefully cashing some violence again. As far as picking a winner, you got to go Salvador. I think De Silva's terrible, like I said, but even Salvador, he's a guy that you probably don't want to trust at this price tag because he's been hurt a lot. He's been submitted a lot. He puts himself into a ton of bad spots. And De Silva, although I don't think he's great, what he is dangerous. He's powerful on the feet. He was very close to finishing Altamirano in the first round, and then also he does have a good submission game. So it wouldn't completely shock me if De Silva went out there and pulled off the upset inside the distance, but you can't pick this guy. I mean, he's looked just atrocious. Salvador went in there as a pretty decent-sized dog. I believe he was on short notice as well against Shannon Ross, and I was very confident in Shannon Ross on that Contender Series matchup. Ross looked very good, and Salvador, he looks pretty bad. The tape you watch of this guy, and a lot of the tapes very low quality. You can't really see a ton of things. And like I said, there's times where he's getting put into bad spots. He's getting subbed. He's getting hurt. And then he goes in the contender series and he looks like an absolute killer, dropping Ross a couple times in the first round and then dropping him a couple times in the second round and ultimately knocking him out in that second round. This guy's long, this guy's rangy, and he hits very, very hard. I mean, the power he carries for a flyweight is unbelievable. He mixes it up to the body as well. I think De Silva's, not tough at all. I mean, this guy gets hurt a ton. So I like violence here. I'm hoping that the over-under gets set at 2.5. If it does, then I'll be betting the under for sure. As far as a pick, I'll take Salvador to win and probably in the first round. But I love violence here more than anything in this matchup. I think it's going to be a very, very fun fight for as long as it lasts.
It's going to be a really fun fight. Both of these guys have great styles. They go out, they try to kill their opponent early, get back home, enjoy their families, their wives, whatever. They're in and out of these cages very, very fast. But the problem right now with this guy that just came off the Contender Series, beating Shannon Ross, the Shannon Ross win over a 13-5 opponent by a mile, his best fight. And even then, Ross was piecing him up in the second before he landed that big shot on him. So, but here are the wins for this. What's this kid's name again? Vinicius Salvador's wins. Wallace Vampirino, 0-0. Tarcisio Gomez in Arena Global, 9-3. Leonardo da Silva, 0-0. Andre Teixeira, 0-0. Roberto de Souza, 8-2 in Max Fight 19. Lucas Ananias, 6-1 in Shutu. That's one of the best promotions that he's fought in is Shutu. Then Andre Acevedo, 6-5. Diogo Oliveira, 4-2. Then some regional scene guys. He hasn't beaten anybody. And the losses are to Eli Frank Cariolano, 7-7. Luis Filio, 9-3. Rafael Costa, 8-1. And Jafel Filio, 11-2. And I watched that Rafael Costa fight, and Costa was way better than him. And I've never heard of this guy. This guy is just kind of a wild man. He trains under Marcelo Hibas. He's one of these guys that does that behind the legs soccer kick thing that Ricardo Ramos does. He throws from very strange angles. He's just very, very unpredictable. And then his opponent, De Silva, is a fun grappler to watch. I mean, he definitely goes aggressively after submissions. He throws with bad intentions. Yeah, dude, I'm going to be waiting for this under to open up. But the thought, Brady, of laying a money line bet in this fight on somebody that's not plus money would terrify me, because I don't think either of these guys are really any good. I think maybe Salvador could get submitted here. He's been submitted in one of his 4 losses. He's been knocked out twice. So it really is. Salvador's probably going to want to keep this standing, and Lacerda's probably going to want to get this thing to the ground and shoot for submissions here. But if this fight ends early, that's the only thing that I can be confident about.
Yeah, I was maybe thinking about betting Salvador going into it, and then after watching tape on him, I was like, absolutely not. I mean, he looks awful.
The regional scene footage, Brady looks awful.
Yeah.
Too.
I mean, he looked good on the Contender Series,
Yes.
but he looked like a completely different fighter on the Contender Series than he did outside of that. So
that's very true.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Brady, we have to mention 26.67% striking defense for Daniel De Silva. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a number that's in 3. That's a 3-fight sample size that he's less than 30%. God, that is so bad. He's averaging, he absorbs 10.26 significant strikes per minute.
Yeah, that's so bad. They're so bad. And De Silva, he's never seen the 3rd round. I like that. Yeah. He's been over 1.5, I think, maybe once. I don't even think he's been over 1.5 rounds. And you can kind of see why with the way this guy fights. I mean, this guy is throwing these crazy spinning attacks, and he doesn't have the cardio to do it. And again, the durability is pretty awful. But yeah, violence here. If anything, you probably don't want to lay minus 190 on Salvador, minus 200. You don't really want to fade a bad fighter with a bad fighter. It never seems to work out. But yeah, violence, if anything, in this one.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe if they give you a fat inside the distance prop, it might be worth trying, if you're on that Salvador side. But this is going to be a fun fight to watch for sure. Somebody's getting slept early.
Somebody's getting or running into a dick saw.
Yeah, that's for sure.
All right, next we have another fight. We have TJ Brown going against Eric Silva. We got TJ Brown, 32 years old, 5'9", with a 72-inch reach. Eric Silva, 35 years old, 5'9", with a 71-inch reach. We have Brown 3 years younger, and Brown with a 1-inch reach advantage. TJ Brown is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. A submission loss to Jordan Griffin, a decision loss to Danny Chavez, a decision win against Kai Kamwaka, a decision win against Charles Rosa, and then a decision loss to Shalian Nurdenbeke. As far as Eric Silva, got a very nice knockout win on the Contender Series his last time out, but he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Yeah, it's a straight pick 'em here. It looks like money's coming in on Brown. This line might flip. I think TJ Brown has not only the worst haircut in the UFC, but some of the worst fight IQ in the UFC, and it's a shame, man. I mean, I was very high on this guy coming into the UFC, and he just continues to disappoint me. Fight after fight after fight with the bad haircuts, the bad game plans. It's really tough to pick this guy, to bet on this guy especially. Eric Silva, very impressed with him. He has not fought the best competition, but he's very good submission game, solid takedowns. So when you get your back, the fight's going to be over shortly after. I think this fight is going to be a very fun one, a fight that primarily plays out on the ground, and we're probably going to find out who the better grappler is. But a fight I don't want anything to do with the money line on either of these two fighters. You got Silva making his debut at 35 years old, coming off the Contender Series, and then a guy in TJ Brown who you just don't want to trust with your money. So one that I'm probably going to be passing on. We'll talk about the violence numbers in a little bit, but for my money line, I just have no interest in either guy. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I messaged Brady the other night, and I was like, man, I'm sick to my stomach. I think I might have to bet TJ Brown here, because I went and I watched the tape on Silva, and this guy is beating nobodies. I mean, nobodies. He's 35 years old. He's 35, and he's making his UFC debut. He's only got 10 fights. He's only got 56 minutes in the pro cage. I mean, I don't get this, man. I think Brown should easily beat this guy, and if he doesn't, I think he should be booed. I think the scene, if TJ Brown loses to this guy, should be similar to the scene after Colby Covington left the Brazilian arena after beating Damian Maia and calling the entire country trash and saying that it was a pit. Remember when Colby was walking out, like everybody was throwing shit at him and it was just raining down on him? That's what should happen to TJ Brown if he blows it against this guy, because he's so much better of a striker than Eric Silva. It's not even funny. But then again, you got a guy in TJ Brown with 41% takedown defense. He allows 22% control time against. And despite the fact that TJ Brown has attempted 34 takedowns and his opponents have only attempted 17, TJ is still managing to almost get out-controlled by his opponents. So this fucking guy Brown, if he doesn't win this fight, I don't know what to say. But this guy Silva, the last guy that he beat was a pure kickboxer with no takedown defense, with no grappling game whatsoever. So, of course, he looked good in that spot, but he hasn't beaten anybody of the grappling pedigree that TJ Brown actually does have. And Brown's a good athlete, former football player. He doesn't have a wrestling background, but because he started wrestling in order to help his jiu-jitsu is good and his wrestling is functional. So I think that he should easily get the job done here. This is a big step down in competition. This guy Silva's looked good. I mean, but the competition, you guys, Ruben Lozano, Eric Radlin, Daniel Vega, Edgar Cabello, and Anvar Boynazarov, who's a kickboxer. Brown's going to be a lot more defensively responsible on the ground than any of those guys are. And, he's been in there with much better grapplers. But even these fights that he's winning, like the Kai Kamaka fight, I couldn't believe he won that fight. I just watched that one yesterday, and I don't think he won it. This is bad. This is a bad low-level fight. But if TJ Brown does not get the job done here, man, I don't know what to say, dude. He better beat this dude.
Yeah, I mean, I'm picking Silva to win the fight and win it inside the distance. I just don't have a ton of confidence on this matchup. It's hard to be confident in a TJ Brown matchup. You never know what you're going to get. But we have a straight pick'em. Silva actually opened up -225, which is pretty interesting. And all the money has come in on TJ Brown. And I do think the line probably looks like it's going to flip. So I'm going to stick with my Silva pick him to win inside the distance. But I will not be touching this fight from a money line perspective.
Yeah, I could maybe get to a bet on TJ Brown if this starts going back the other way here. And then just try to remove my emotional, feelings from the bet, because I think that's the best way to do it, because this guy TJ Brown's fucked me over a number of times, but this is the kind of spot that I'm betting him. I don't want to get away from the process just because TJ Brown's got a fucking terrible haircut and has piss poor fight IQ. I think even with a bad haircut and bad fight IQ, we can win this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I can't. I mean, we saw Kevin Holland last night. I mean, with that bad haircut, I knew once I saw the haircut, it was over.
I saw the haircut and I went fumbling to try to get into my DraftKings account to bet fucking, but it was already too late. And I almost broke my keyboard when I saw that it was too late. You've got to short a haircut like that, and you come in there, spring that on the people, man. We knew that Holland was going to lose.
Yeah. I mean, if you're making bad decisions outside the cage, like a haircut like Holland did last night, you're going to make horrible decisions inside the cage, and Holland made a bunch of those last night. So we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, this is a freaking mess of a fight. Probably, honestly, another 1-800 here. But let's keep moving on. We have Chris Curtis going against Joaquin Buckley. We got Chris Curtis, 35 years old, 5'10" with a 75-inch reach. Buckley, 28 years old, 5'10", 76-inch reach. Buckley, 7 years younger, and Buckley with a 1-inch reach advantage. Chris Curtis is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Phil Hawes, won that fight by knockout, knocked out Brendan Allen, won a decision against Rodolfo Vieira, and then lost a decision against Jack Hermanson. As far as Joaquin Buckley, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a knockout loss to Alessio Di Chirico, a knockout win against Antonio Ohoyo, a decision win against Abdulrazak Al-Hassan, and then a knockout win against Albert Duraev, and then a decision loss against Nazardine Imavov. We have Buckley, who's a good striker, solid wrestler. I just don't see him taking down Curtis in this matchup, though. I think this fight is going to play out on the feet. Buckley, a lot of power. Curtis, a lot of power as well. I think it's going to be a close fight here. I love the durability of Curtis. I do favor his durability here. But yeah, it's kind of a tough matchup for me to call. Weezy, what do you feel about this one?
Yeah, it's a great one, dude. Curtis is a lot more experienced than this guy. And I'm always kind of surprised when I see that the measurables say that Curtis is going to be a similar size to his middleweight opponent, because we know Curtis is more of a welterweight. And he fights up at middleweight so that he could take fights on short notice and not have to cut weight. And he's more durable up there at 185 too. That helps. So, but yeah, I mean, Curtis is 35 years old and Joaquin Buckley is still only 28 years old. So we could still see a lot of improvement here from Buckley. And we've seen him make improvements between fights before. So, but Curtis is a lot more experienced, almost 300 more minutes in the pro cage. But it's actually Buckley who's got a little bit of a UFC experience advantage here. Buckley, the better finisher, 73% overall, all by knockout, while Chris Curtis, it's 58% overall, but it's 55% by knockout. So both of these guys are purely knockout artists. Neither one of them is getting submissions Buckley's went for takedowns, but he's not dangerous on the ground. And it's not like he's going to submit a guy like Chris Curtis, who's got 100% takedown defense at the UFC level on 32 takedown attempts against. So this fight, Brady, let's just be honest, it's staying standing, okay? And it's going to be whoever wins the minutes on the feet or wins the moments and gets a knockout. But in terms of minute winning here, I got to go with Chris Curtis, man. He's, first of all, 58% accurate on his strikes, while Joaquin Buckley's 33% accurate. And then you got both of these guys with their striking defense. It's just a little bit better for Buckley, around 54.5%, 52.5% for Curtis. But Curtis has never been knocked down. Buckley's absorbed 3 knockdowns at the UFC level in 8 fights. And Chris Curtis has 3 knockdowns in 5 fights, while Buckley, I think, has 6. Yeah, he's got 6 knockdowns in 8 fights. So Buckley's got a lot of power. Maybe Buckley will be the first guy to knock down Chris Curtis, because, Phil Hawes, that's a guy with power, but Brendan Allen's not going to knock you down. Rodolfo Vieira is not going to knock you down, and most likely Jack Hermanson isn't either. So we could see Buckley crack Curtis's chin up here at 185, but he's got to be more accurate, man. 33% striking accuracy. That's got me a little bit worried. And when we look at the strength of schedule here, much better in the ratio for Chris Curtis overall, and much better in his wins. So I like Curtis's experience. I like his wins. I think he's the better minute winner in a boxing exchange here too. And I don't see the grappling coming into play at all. So I've got to lean Chris Curtis here.
Yeah, I'm leaning Curtis as well. I think the durability is going to matter in this one, and not one I'm going to be betting. I can't really seem to get Chris Curtis fights right, but I will pick him to win. I believe he's a dog as well. Yeah, he is a dog. So he opened up. Buckley opened up -125. He's currently -161. And then Chris Curtis opened up +105, currently +141, which doesn't make a ton of sense to me. I feel like it's going to be fairly close on the feet. And then, like I said, I think Curtis has the clear durability edge. So +141, I don't know. I don't really get that.
I think it's because, Curtis just did not look good against Hermanson, right? But we also have to remember, Curtis took that fight on a week's notice? Flew across the pond to take that fight? And then he was at a massive height and reach disadvantage here, which he's not going to be at here. Chris had trouble closing the distance against Hermanson, but Joaquin Buckley's got only a 1-inch reach advantage here, and he's the same height. He's just a lot more bricked up than Chris Curtis is. So I like it too. I'm with you, Brady. I think that the plus money on Chris Curtis makes a lot more sense than laying juice on a guy with 33% striking accuracy, a guy who's won some minutes in the grappling, but who most likely will not be winning any minutes here against Curtis. So I think it's going to be a boxing match. I think Curtis gets the fight that he wants, and I think he's a little bit better of a minute winner.
Yep. I plus money, close fight, durability. Sign me up. I'll maybe get to a bet. I want to look into this one a little bit more, but yeah, I do lean the dog in Curtis as well. All right, next we have a very good fight because it is a Billy Quarantillo fight, and this guy absolutely brings it every single time. Billy is 33 years old, 5'10" with a 70-inch reach. Hernandez, 30 years old, 5'9" with a 72-inch reach. Quarantillo, he is 3 years older. He's going to have a 1-inch height advantage, and then he's going to be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Quarantillo 3-2 in his last 5 fights, had a decision win against Spike Carlisle, a knockout win against Kyle Nelson, a decision loss to Gavin Tucker, a knockout win against Gabriel Benitez, and then a decision loss to Shane Burgos his last time out. Very fun fight there. Alexander Hernandez is 2-3 in his last 5 fights, a knockout loss to Drew Dober, a knockout win against Chris Grutzmacher, a decision loss to Thiago Moises, a knockout win against Mike Breeden, and then a submission loss to Moicano. I think this sets up for a very good fight for Billy Quarantillo. Billy Quarantillo is one of those guys that has great cardio, pressure, pace. He pushes a very heavy pace, and a pace that I just don't see Alexander Hernandez keeping up with. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. Hernandez looks very good early, and even sometimes he's able to get these first-round knockouts. But as the fight goes on, he seems to slow down. He seems to break a little bit. And I think Quarantillo probably ends up breaking this guy in the second or the third round. Billy Quarantillo, the guy is very hittable, and that is a very big concern because Hernandez does have a lot of power. So early on, you got to be concerned about the striking defense of Billy. He is willing to eat one. He's willing to eat almost 6 to give 7, but he's eating a lot of shots with his face. So that worries me a little bit. But as the fight goes on, Billy's going to take over. He's going to push a pace, and I think he does break Hernandez in that second and third round. Don't like it enough to lay the money line here, but I will be picking Billy Quarantillo to win this fight inside the distance. And I don't think it's a terrible violent spot as well, just due to the fact that, Hernandez has a lot of power. He is dangerous early. And then Billy Quarantillo is a guy that can break you down the stretch. So I see it as like a Hernandez early, Billy late type situation here. So I kind of lean violence. And I will be picking Billy in this fight. Weezy, should be a phenomenal fight here. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. Quarantillo's in that vein of fighter that I'm just a huge fan of. The cardio monster, volume monster, pressure, mixing in the wrestling, make an exhausting fight that wears on you and breaks you late. And really, I think if Quarantillo gets this win, I think we might be seeing Quarantillo versus Jonathan Pierce. And that would be a fight for the ages to see those styles square off against each other, because guess what? Pierce is wide open for the next 3 months. And if Quarantillo gets through this fight unscathed and gets a win, I think that's a matchup to see which one of these pace monsters will take that next step and try to go get into the top 10 of this division. But when you look at the measurables here, Hernandez a little bit younger, has got a 2-inch reach advantage. We like that. Both of these guys coming from excellent camps. The experience numbers are very similar, but Quarantillo has some more minutes in the pro cage. And Alexander Hernandez has got a couple more UFC fights, but once again, it's Quarantillo with a few more minutes in the cage. 80% finish rate in 5 UFC wins for Quarantillo. 60% finish rate in 5 wins in the UFC for Hernandez. But here's the difference. Hernandez has been finished in 3 or 4 losses, and Quarantillo's never been finished at the UFC level, and he's only been finished once in 4 career losses. So Quarantillo's durability is probably a big deal in this fight because Hernandez hasn't been that durable. And then when you look at the striking numbers and the minute winning potential here, you see a guy in Quarantillo who's throwing 13 significant strike attempts per minute, and his opponents are throwing about 9.66, and he's outlanding them by almost 2 significant strikes per minute. Excellent differentials there, but it's the striking defense. Like you say, it worries me a little bit, but he's still only been knocked down once in 7 UFC fights, so he's pretty durable. When it comes to the grappling game, Hernandez averaging 1.43 takedowns per 15 minutes, Quarantillo averaging 1.37, but you see the difference there. 36% control time for Quarantillo, only 12% control time for Hernandez. So Hernandez will mix in the wrestling, but he's not doing it to win minutes. His fights only take place in control time positions about 21% of the time, and he wins about 60% of those control time positions. But Quarantillo's fights are in control time positions about 53% of the time, and he's winning about 70% of those control time positions. So even though Billy's only getting his takedowns at a 21% clip, he's controlling his opponents, and the amount of control time that he's getting per successful takedown is a much larger chunk than what Hernandez is getting. But we do have to pay very special attention to that strength of schedule metric there, Brady. Hernandez has absolutely fought the better strength of schedule. And let's remember, This fight's at 145. We didn't talk about that yet. Hernandez is making his debut at 145 here against Quarantillo.
Nice.
So he's going to be cutting an extra 10 pounds. And boy, when you're doing that for the first time in your career, it's a bad matchup when you're going up against somebody with the pace and the pressure and the volume of Quarantillo, because you're going to be more exhausted than you're used to being after that depleting of a weight cut. And Quarantillo is just a really bad opponent. But we do have to keep in mind that Hernandez fighting the much better ratio competition and the much more experienced competition here in comparison to Quarantillo. Quarantillo's last two fights, Burgos and Benitez, while it's Moicano, Breeden, Thiago Moises, Drew Dober, and then before that, Donald Cerrone and Beneil Dariush for Alexander Hernandez. He came in, made a big splash, and people were like, how the fuck is this kid beating those guys? I wonder if it's a fluke. And now people are starting to say, well, maybe it is a fluke, but he's cutting down to 145. He's going to be the bigger dude here, and he's got a lot of power. And like you said, 40% striking defense for Quarantillo. He blocks punches with his face, so maybe we could see Hernandez have some early success. I like violence here, though. The debut at Hernandez at 145, I think, is good. I think the pressure of Quarantillo can absolutely break him, so it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, and the fact that Hernandez is cutting down to 145 for the first time, it has to make you like violence, much more than you already did. Because the guy's gas tank's already very questionable to begin with. His durability is very questionable to begin with, and Billy Q just puts on a pace. So, fight is a good decision right now on 5 dimes is plus 125, and I would be on that.
I would be on that too, man. Because this is a featherweight fight. They only finish inside the distance about 43, 44% of the time. But these guys' fights are finishing inside the distance 4 of 5 times in wins. So 4 of 7 for Quarantillo, and then 3 of 5 and 3 and 4. So 6 of 9 for Hernandez. So you're getting a nice little edge in terms of their combined finish rates for and against compared to the implied probability of the line there.
Yep. So I like it. Cannot wait for Bet Online to release some props here, maybe tomorrow. But yeah, we have Billy Q. Oh, he's only minus 160. I was expecting to be a bigger favorite. He opened up minus 210, though. He is currently minus 160. Hernandez opened up plus 180, currently plus 140. Like I said, the only thing that does scare me is the strike and defense. He does eat punches with his face, but like you said, he's very tough, very tough. And then the fact that Hernandez is cutting down a weight class for the first time, minus 160 isn't the worst price in the world, I don't think. I thought it was closer to minus 200, honestly.
Yeah, I love Billy Quarantillo type fighters, so I might get to a money line bet. I'm very reluctant to lay juice, but I could see that going in the greasy 4-legger this week, and I could see maybe even putting down 1.6 to win one.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess we're gonna take a look at Hernandez on the scales as well, because the guy, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how he looks.
Yeah, 155 to 145 is not a joke of a cut, man.
Yeah, because you see him at 155, the guy's like completely jacked. So already,
yeah.
All right, we'll have to see him on the scales. But yeah, I like violence, and I don't mind some Billy Q. All right, we will keep moving on. We have Edmen Shahbazyan going against Dolce Longambola. We got Shahbazyan, who's 25 years old, 6'2" with a 74-inch reach. Dolce, 35 years old, 5'8" with a 76-inch reach. We have Shahbazyan, who is 10 years younger. It is going to be Shahbazyan with a 6-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Shahbazyan's 2-3 in his last 5 fights. A submission win over Jack Marshall, a knockout loss against Derek Brunson, a decision loss to Jack Manson, and then a knockout loss to Nasruddin Imavov. Or as Dolce is 1-4 in his last 5 fights, a knockout loss to Magomed Ankalaev, decision win against Marcus Perez, a decision loss to Marc-Andre Barrios, a submission loss to Cody Brundage, and then a knockout loss against Punahele Soriano. Right off the bat, I want to talk about this line. Edmen Shahbazyan is a minus 340 favorite right now on FanDuel Sportsbook. 1-4 in his last 5 fights, or 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Edmen Shahbazyan is a minus 300 favorite. I think he absolutely should win this fight. But man, minus 300 for a guy like Edmen who, questionable cardio. Both guys have very questionable cardio. I don't know. I feel like this should be Edmen here and Edmen by knockout. I think Dolce's cardio is even worse, believe it or not, than Edmen's. I had a bet on Dolce, and it was against Marcus Perez. It was the worst experience of my life. I mean, the guy was like gassed out after 5 minutes. He looked bad against Barrio. He looked good against Brundage, and then he shot a takedown and they got submitted, and then he got knocked out by Punahele Soriano. I lean Edmen, but minus 300, it's just too much.
Agreed. And, Edmen's still only 25 years old. This kid came in and really made a name for himself, I believe, around the age of 21. Got that win over Marshman, got that win over Tavares. And, when he beat Brad Tavares, people were like, shit, man, this kid's boxing is legitimate. He started to mix in the wrestling a little bit. Sky's the limit. Then he runs into a dick saw. Derek Brunson, Jack Hermanson, Nasruddin Imavov. And now we've just got a massive step down in competition. But what do we really know about Shahbazyan at this point? He's facing higher level guys, but we're just not seeing that spark that we saw out of him originally when he first came in. And I don't know if he's peaked. I don't know if he's going to get any better. He does still have really good boxing, but then there's other things that you don't like, How about a 46% striking defense? You can't have that up at the higher levels of this division and expect that you're not going to be getting knocked out with that kind of defense. But with Lungi and Bula, I mean, he's a guy who depends on his grappling, but he doesn't have the pace to grapple for 3 rounds. He's very strong. He's got good judo, and he's got some power in his hands, but there's no process there. He's really just trying to murder you early. And if he doesn't, he's probably going to get knocked out late. And there's no way I'm laying minus 300 on Edmen Shahbazyan. I have to see him win this fight, before I start thinking that he could, be what we thought he could be 3-4 years ago before he ran into that murderer's row of Brunson, Hermanson, and Imavov. But this guy does have a win over Brad Tavares. And if he could beat Brad Tavares, he could beat the shit out of Dalcha, Lungi, and Bula. But I just don't know where this kid's head is at. He's had a rough run, dude. He's had a really rough run, losing 3 out of his last 4 fights. So I'm not sure what to do here, man. But I love those power numbers of Shahbazyan. I like the fact that Dalcha's eaten a couple of knockdowns. And Shahbazyan's 58% takedown defense is not good. I could see Dalcha maybe having some success there, but maybe if you're on that Shahbazyan side, maybe look for a live bet after round 1, but I'm staying away from this one, dude. I just don't know what to think of Edmen at this point in his career, and I haven't seen any improvements, so I'm not laying that kind of number. And on the other side with Dalcha, I just don't see any reason to bet the plus money there because I just don't see how he wins fights at this level.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy pass for me from a money line standpoint and a prop standpoint. Didn't hate the violence, but not really in love with the price. They're all over it, minus 215 there. So yeah, going to be staying away from this one. But yes, Shahbazyan is minus 280 bet online, minus 340 on FanDuel Sportsbook. Pretty easy pass. Would not really recommend him as a parlay piece, but he should win this fight.
He should. We'll see what happens though.
All right, next we have Jairzinho Rozenstruik going against Chris Daukaus. Rozenstruik, 34 years old, 6'2", 78-inch reach. Daukaus, 33 years old, 6'3", 76-inch reach. Daukaus 1 year younger, 1-inch height advantage, and it's going to be Rozenstruik with a 2-inch reach advantage. Rozenstruik 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Knockout win against JDS. Decision loss against Cyril Gahn. Knockout win against Augusto Sakai. Decision loss against Curtis Blades, and then a knockout loss to Alexander Volkov. Chris Daukaus is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A knockout win against Rodrigo Nascimento, a knockout win against Alexei Oleinik, a knockout win against Shamil Abdurakhimov, a knockout loss to Derek Lewis, a knockout loss to Curtis Blades, and then he's fighting Rozenstruik. I mean, I have a question, Weezy. Why does the UFC hate Chris Daukaus?
Yeah, because he's a heavyweight and he's strung together a few wins. And if you do that, you get put up into the upper echelons of the division. And look, nobody in this division is fucking good. Really. I mean, honestly, even the champion is one-dimensional, so you wind up winning a couple of fights in this division. You just get, all of a sudden, you're fighting Derek Lewis. All of a sudden, you're fighting Tai Tuivasa. You're fighting Pavlovich. These kind of guys that have terrifying power, or you run into a Blades who's going to take you down and work the ground and pound. Or, so it's a rough matchup for him, man. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, when he gets the fight that he wants, he's very difficult to deal with. And I would feel a lot better about Chris Daukaus' chances if I had ever seen him ever attempt to grapple at the UFC level, which he hasn't.
He does.
So,
yeah.
But hopefully we'll get that one clip of Jairzinho Rozenstruik shooting a takedown, or, so like it looks like he's like, oh yeah, I've been working on my wrestling. Yeah, bullshit. You've been working on your wrestling. So this is going to be a boxing match, but I always favor the kickboxer over the boxer. I just feel that that's the better way to go. And even though Daukaus has better power numbers in terms of knockdowns per total significant strikes landed, I think we know that one guy has got the one-touch power, and that's Rozenstruik. Rozenstruik's the dude who's knocking dudes out with jabs.
Yeah.
And this being an orthodox versus orthodox matchup, when Jairzinho gets to set up his striking with that jab of his, which is very, very good, I've got to lean him here. This fight's not going to the ground. It's going to be a boxing match. Most likely somebody is getting knocked out. We saw Jairzinho very aggressive in his last fight against Volkov. He was trying to take his head off, got a little bit defensively irresponsible, and got clipped. But I think he's going to probably get the win here over Chris Daukaus. How do you feel?
Yep. Under 1.5 is how I feel. I think somebody's getting knocked out here. I think I'm picking Rozenstruik as well. But at the same time, we have seen Rozenstruik knocked out himself, especially against Volkov his last time. And Daukaus, he does hit hard. But man, I can't trust Daukaus at this point. But yeah, the UFC is doing him no favors, which you'd think, maybe you let this guy bounce back, right? Give him a little bit easier of a matchup. But no, they're giving him Rozenstruik, who hits very, very hard, one of the hardest hitters in the division. So yeah, I like Rozenstruik to win probably in the very first round. And I'll be looking at that under 1.5 rounds, depending on where it's at. I'll
be right there with you, dude. I like Jairzinho in this spot.
Perfect. Hopefully we get another fun heavyweight fight. Last night's was very fun with Pavlovich, and it didn't last long, but it was fun while it lasted.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next we have a very good fight. Like, this is probably one of my favorite fights on the card. Two really, really good fighters, and both guys are undefeated. Bryce Mitchell, 15-0. Ilia Topuria, 12-0. And this is going to be awesome. We have Bryce Mitchell. He is 28 years old, 5'10" with a 70-inch reach. Topuria, 25 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. Topuria, 3 years younger. Bryce Mitchell, 3-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. Bryce Mitchell is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Bobby Moffitt. Submission win against Matt Sales. Decision win against Charles Rosa, Feely, and Barbosa. As far as Topuria, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Salah. Knockout win against Damon Jackson, Hall, and Herbert. Just a very, very good fight. We have Bryce Mitchell, who this guy's kind of surprised me. I mean, I was not really expecting to go out here and have this much success in the UFC, but the guy's wrestling has looked phenomenal. I mean, he's going out there and just taking these guys down at will and doing it for 15 minutes. His striking has looked a little bit better as well. He hurt Barbosa in his last fight, which completely shocked me. But yeah, this guy, Bryce Mitchell, he's different. He's very different. They got Topuria, who's just an absolute killer. Black belt and BJJ, Georgian fighter, tons of power, just very good everywhere, very dangerous everywhere. I think this is one of the best fights on the card, Weezy.
Absolutely. I mean, 27 combined fights, and neither of these guys has ever lost. And, Topuria, 25 years old, Mitchell, 28 years old. They're both going to be getting better, just improving. They're both in their prime. So this is such a fun fight here. Both these guys finish fights too. 60% finish rate all by sub for Mitchell in his pro wins, and 91% finish rate for Ilia Topuria, and he's finished 3 of his 4 UFC wins. When it comes to the distance striking, Topuria's got a ton of power, man. And, he kind of uses his striking to close the distance, get in there on the grappling exchanges. And his knockout over Damon Jackson was one for the ages. Absolutely spectacular. And Mitchell even landed a knockdown against Edson Barbosa in his last fight. And that's because he's such a dangerous grappler that he can surprise you with the striking attacks because you're so worried about the takedown. Both of these guys are just phenomenal on the mat, though. Mitchell, though, 3 inches taller and a 1-inch reach advantage. And I think that's going to make a difference on the mat. Mitchell's ability to be able to go for submissions with those longer limbs, I think, is going to make him the more dangerous grappler here. You look at those numbers for these guys in the grappling, Brady. 55% control time for Mitchell, 19% control time allowed. So 75% of his fights are taking place in control time positions. With Topuria, he's almost out controlling his opponents at a 4-to-1 ratio, 42% to 11%, 100% takedown defense for Topuria, and 46% takedown accuracy. And Mitchell only has 33% takedown defense because he's happy to go to the ground. He wants to be there anyway. But it looks like Topuria might be the guy that's actually able to get the takedowns here and get on top, because Bryce Mitchell folds like a lawn chair when somebody does try to take him down, while Topuria has shown 100% takedown defense thus far. Topuria's fought the better win-loss ratioed competition, but it's Mitchell who's fighting the much more experienced competition here. And, the last four names, Zalal, Damon Jackson, Ryan Hall, Jai Herbert, not particularly impressed with any win but the Damon Jackson win. But for Mitchell, beating Philly and Barbosa the way that he did, I think is, really, really good stuff. This is such a great fight. Somebody said it in the chat earlier with Ankalaev Błachowicz being the main event. Yeah. This is really the main event. This is the highest level fight on this card, where at least, one of the guys isn't a Dagestani just vampire with no output and doesn't do anything. We got Topuria is going to be so dangerous on the feet. Both of these guys are incredibly dangerous on the ground. They don't like each other, I don't think. But here's the thing, Brady. This is why I'm leaning Bryce Mitchell. I don't think Ilia can make 145 anymore, dude.
A lot to see, yeah.
He's pulled out a couple of times because of bad weight cuts. His last fight against Jai Herbert was up at 155 because they basically told him, Ilia, you got to prove to us that you can make 145 because you're a contender down there. He puts together a couple more wins. He's top 10. He's a contender, but he's got to make the weight. They had the same problem with Joel Alvarez at 170. He kept missing weight. Rowe has missed weight a couple of times now in a row here, Philip Rowe. You've got to be able to make weight consistently at your weight class if you're going to move up that ladder. And I'm not sure Ilia Topuria can do that. So I want to see Ilia on the scales, man. That's going to be very important because Bryce is going to be there. He's going to be on weight, and we know what this guy brings to the table. I think the questions are on the Topuria side right now, so I'm siding with Mitchell.
Yeah, it's one of those fights where I just have no interest in betting it, but you don't need to, right? You're going to watch it as a fan, and it's going to be the best fight of the card. You got to imagine, just because so much is at stake. I mean, these are two guys that you could see either potentially fighting for a title one day. Absolutely. I mean, these guys are still very young. Topuria's only 25. Isn't that nuts? Only 25 years old. Mitchell only 28. Both guys undefeated. It's a phenomenal matchup, and it is closely lined with Topuria as a slight favorite. He opened up minus 150, currently minus 142. Bryce Mitchell opened up plus 130, currently plus 122. So, yeah, Topuria is a slight favorite. I think it's a good call, waiting to see how Topuria looks on the scales. I think it's going to be very important to see that.
Yeah, we'll see, man, because, like you said, Brady, he's only 25 years old. He's just going to be getting bigger and stronger. It's going to be harder and harder for him to make that weight as he gets older. So, we're going to have to see how that goes. But, yeah, dude, 27-0 these guys are combined. I can't wait for this fight. So high level. Grappler's delight. And while it's on the feet, Bryce is showing some serious improvements there, and Ilia's got crazy power, man. I remember watching the regional scene footage on Topuria before he made his debut against Zalal, and I was blown away by the regional scene footage when this kid was 21. So sky's the limit for both of these guys. Fantastic way. This is starting off the pay-per-view, right? Or is it Rozenstruik Daukaus?
So it is it's Mitchell Topuria as of now is kicking it off.
Yeah. That's such a good way to start off this main card.
Oh yeah. I was going to say something. What was I going to say? I forget. But either way, I do want to shout out some donos here. We got Mark Schillingberg with the $4.99 super sticker. Appreciate you, Mark, for hanging out, for the support, for the dono. And then we also got Martin with the $19.99 dono saying, thank you guys for all your hard work, up over 20 units. Last night, great night there. 5 ginormous 4-week parlays alive going to this week. So there you go, setting yourself up for another great night. Some of them with Ponzinibbio, what we'll be talking about very soon, last leg. Another couple with Paddy and Ankalaev as last legs, feeling great. appreciate you for the dono. And I think, yeah, you're in a pretty good spot. I think all three of those fighters do win there. So yeah, thank you for that. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Mark. And thank all of you for hanging out with us on a Sunday. Be sure to smash the like button and also subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Me and Weezy are live every Sunday at 7:15 p.m. Eastern time. Let's keep moving up this main card. We have Darren Till going against Dricus du Plessis.
Has Till pulled out yet?
Yes.
Oh, damn. All right. Let's move on.
Darren Till, he is 29 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach. Du Plessis, he's 28 years old, 6'1" with a 76-inch reach. You got Till is 1 year older. Du Plessis 1 inch height advantage and a 2 inch reach advantage. Till he's 1-4 in his last 5 fights. A submission loss to Tyron Woodley, knockout loss to Jorge Masvidal, decision win against Kelvin Gastelum, decision loss to Robert Whittaker, and a submission loss to Derek Brunson. It's been a rough go for Darren Till there. I went back and watched like early in his career, and the guy was on the top of the world for forever, for a while. And then he went in there and lost to Woodley. Still had a ton of hype. And then he went in there and lost to Masvidal as a big dog. And I'll never forget that day because that was my biggest win ever on DraftKings. I remember doing, I had the 20 max, I had the $12 single entry, and I had like the $1 contest, and then the $5 single entry. And then I had the winning lineup in all 4 of those contests for my biggest win ever on DraftKings. I'll never forget that day with Jorge getting it done. But yeah, brutal knockout loss there. And then he started to lose the hype a little bit. Kind of a lackluster fight against Kelvin Gastelum, lost Robert Whittaker, a submission loss to Derek Brunson. And, all the hype on this guy is long gone by now. I mean, he's looked awful. A question where this guy's head's at. And if this fight was 2-3 years ago, he'd be a massive favorite here in this matchup, but it's not. Dricus is a guy that he's kind of a wild man. Went out there against Brad Tavares in a very wild fight. Looked like he gassed out in the first round, but was able to kind of push through it and look kind of good down the stretch, hurting Brad Tavares a ton. Still a lot of question marks I have with Dricus, but he's looked good. He's a finisher. I believe he's finished all but one of his wins. I think he's went to decision once, and it was that last fight against Tavares. But I feel like this is a very winnable matchup for Till. It's just you can't trust this guy. I mean, Till's takedown defense has always been very good. I don't see Dricus being able to take down Darren Till. We saw, Dricus really struggled taking down Brad Tavares, who does have good takedowns, but, Dricus thus far in the UFC only at 18% takedown accuracy. So I do think this does play out on the feet for the majority of the time. And when it does, I like Till striking quite a bit. Dricus is a guy that, is a little bit hittable as well, a little bit able to or willing to eat shots as well. But I don't know. Trusting Till at this point, and he's only 29, which is the weird thing, but it just feels like he's kind of washed, which is crazy to say because he's only 29. He just looks so bad. So is he going to bounce back here, or does he get another L and go 1-5 in his last 6 fights? I think it's such a winnable fight, but there's just no way I can put my money on Darren Till here. Weezy, what do you think about this fight here?
Yeah, I think you kind of summed it up perfectly here. I mean, you got a guy in du Plessis who's coming off 5 consecutive wins. It might even be more than that. He's fought Roberto Soldic a couple of times on the regional scene, been 1-1 with him. A guy who's showing great power, who's mixing in a little bit of wrestling too. And he just looks the part. And then you got a guy in Darren Till who's like kind of like a meme now. People don't really know what to expect from this guy anymore. He's while I break down these stats, can you just tell me how many times he's fought in the last 3 years, Darren Till?
Darren Till has fought once in 2021, once in 2020, and then twice in 2019. 4 times in the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, so I mean it's not as bad as I thought, but still we're just not seeing much. But look, the crazy thing is it's the last 5, right, Brady? Tyron Woodley, former champion. Jorge Masvidal fought for the title a couple of times. Kelvin Gastelum, Robert Whittaker, former 185-pound champion. Derek Brunson is a guy that's been a top 5er. And then Dricus du Plessis, his best win is Brad Tavares, and then it's Officer Giles and Marcus Perez and Brendan Lessar and Joyelton Luterbach. These are not names that are. I mean, Darren Till would dick saw these guys,
yeah.
But with Till, he's just a pure moment winner at this point. He throws no volume. I I would be shocked if we could find somebody at 170 or 185 that throws less than 4.85 significant strike attempts per minute, Brady. That's bullshit. This guy does nothing, right? And he's got good striking defense, 58%. That's definitely solid. But this guy is only throwing 4.85 significant strikes per minute, and his opponents are throwing 7.23. So that he's getting out-volumed. He's getting outlanded by 3/4 of a significant strike per minute, while a guy like Du Plessis is putting volume on his opponents. So, I mean, it's really hard to see Darren Till winning this fight any other way but landing a big shot and knocking out Dricus. How does this guy win minutes?
He doesn't. He wins by knockdowns.
Yeah, I mean, even in the Gastelum fight, that was a split decision. That probably could have went either way. So this guy is not really going to win minutes in this fight, especially against somebody that throws the volume that Du Plessis does, that can match the power that Till has. And even, Dricus is mixing in a little bit of takedowns, not much. 0.5 takedowns for 15 minutes for Till, 1.2 for Dricus. Neither one of these guys is spending a lot of time in control time positions. Both of them spend less than 25% of their fights in control time positions for or against. So it's a big stay away from me because it's a big step up for Du Plessis. We do have to see how, because Till's just been in there with much better competition, and he's well rested because he hasn't fought in a long time. So hopefully the injuries that he's been dealing with are in the rearview mirror, and we can see the 29-year-old Darren Till get back to form. But the thought of betting on him here, I can't do it. And the thought of laying juice on Dricus against such a huge step up in competition, I don't know what to do here. And you never know. We might see Till's wrestling game improve now that he's been hanging out with the gourmet Chechen, Khamzat Chimaev.
Yeah, I mean, I can't bet on this fight because it would be a dog or pass for me. I'm not betting on Darren Till in 2022. Clear pass. I kind of like violence. Dricus did go to decision his last fight, but that was the very first time he ever went the distance. And Dricus, I could see him knocking out or even submitting Till. Till's been submitted a lot. I know it at the very least twice in the UFC. Brunson submitted him easily. Till looked awful whenever Brunson took his back there. And then he also got submitted by Woodley after getting hurt and dropped, and then eventually Darst. So I could see a Du Plessis sub, Du Plessis knockout, and then I could see a Till knockout as well. So I think violence, if anything, but even that, I'm not really running to the winner just because it's a Till's style. But maybe Du Plessis pushes the pace, throws volume, and maybe there is a finish because of that. So I do like violence, if anything, but probably not touching this fight.
Yeah, you and me both, dude. I'm going to stay away from that one. It'll be fun to see Darren Till back in there if he makes it to the scales. Has he pulled out yet? Check again.
Not yet.
All right. Okay.
It's coming. I feel it coming.
All right. Let's get him back in there. I want to see him back in there. He's only 29. Let's see Darren Till get back in there and do what he needs to do. Let's
see it. He needs this. I mean, he needs this win so bad. So we'll see if he gets it. All right. Next we have Robbie Lawler going against Santiago Ponzinibbio. We got Lawler, 40 years old, 5'11", with a 74-inch reach. Ponzinibbio, 36 years old, 6 foot, with a 73-inch reach. Ponzinibbio, 4 years younger. Ponzinibbio, 1-inch height advantage, and that's going to be Lawler with a 1-inch reach advantage. Robbie Lawler, 1-4 in his last 5 fights. Sub loss to Askren. Decision loss to Covington. Decision loss to Magny, knockout win against Diaz, and then a knockout loss against Brian Barberena. Ponzinibbio 2-3 in his last 5 fights. A knockout win against Neil Magny, knockout loss against the Leech. Decision win against Miguel Baeza. Decision loss to Jeff Neal and Michelle Pereira. So going into it, I thought it would be potentially parlaying up Ponzinibbio, but after looking into it, I still think he wins, and I think you got to pick Ponzinibbio here, but he's getting, I think it's like wider than -400. I think it's like -415, 420 on some books. Lawler, I think he's done. I think he's washed, but the last thing to go is the power, and he clearly still has a lot of power. He hurt Brian Barberena very, very bad in that first round, but at the end of the day, getting knocked out by Brian Barberena is just not a good look to me. I think Ponzinibbio is going to be the better striker here, the minute winner here. And I think, Robbie Lawler he keeps getting into he's always been in these wars. And, even lately against Diaz, Barberena, like these are absolute wars. And I think this is going to be an absolute war. And it's just hard to trust Robbie Lawler at this point as a career to take, even more damage than he's already taken. I mean, he looks rough in there. I think Ponzinibbio probably knocks him out, but I don't know. I wouldn't completely rule out like a Lawler knockout. Like I said, Lawler is still hitting very hard these days. Ponzinibbio has been knocked out a few times as well. So I actually won't hate a shot on violence depending on the line, but you got to pick Ponzinibbio. But minus 400, I don't know about that.
Yeah, minus 400 is an 80% implied probability. That leaves very little room for error, over a long term when you're betting lines like that. But you look at Ponzinibbio going tooth and nail with guys like Jeff Neal and Michel Pereira at this point in his career. He's 4 years younger. Look, Robbie Lawler's been a professional mixed martial artist fighting in the UFC and Strikeforce for 21 years of his life. More than half of this dude's life, he's been in there against the best fighters in the world for 21 consecutive years. Can you imagine the toll that takes on a human being's body? A 21-year career of fighting killers, 46 professional fights, 24 UFC fights. You remember this dude's fight against Melvin Manhoff? Almost kicked the bottom of his leg off. He was left for dead there and then threw one big shot and slept Manhoff with it. This guy has been through it all. You don't bet on a guy like Robbie Lawler at this point in his career. His body has got to be just absolutely falling apart. It just has to be. Santiago's looked good. He had some time off. He took a couple of years off because of a really bad staph infection, I believe. He was kind of like on death's doorstep for a minute there and came back and he got knocked out by Li Jingliang, but then he beats Baeza. And then he goes 3 rounds with Neal, 3 rounds with Pereira, and either of those fights could have went either way. I just think we see Ponzinibbio in a place where he's been more active and he's been fighting better. While Lawler's getting knocked out by Brian Barberena, losing a ton of minutes to Nick Diaz. And Nick Diaz is another guy who's just had a tremendous toll on his body for almost 20 years of his life now. So, I'm leaning Ponzinibbio here. Am I laying minus 400 on the money line? No.
What about 480?
Wow. No, I won't be laying that. I mean, like at that price, I might even just take a quarter unit stab on Lawler, and maybe it goes to split decision and the judges get paid off. I don't know, man. I'm staying away from this one, but it should be an easy one to stay away from, right, Brady? It's going to be a fucking fun fight.
Yeah,
this guy's going to throw down.
Yeah, I'm cool with staying away with it. It's going to be a fun fight. I mean, violence, if anything. Probability tomorrow, which is going to be so much fun because there's a ton of violence sticking out. We'll have the lines by then. We'll talk about it a little bit more on probability, but I think violence in this one could be something to look at. Just due to the fact that Lawler, he's typically been tough, but my goodness, man. Getting knocked out by Brian Barberena is just a bad look to me. I mean, he looked bad in that fight, in that second round.
How could he not? 46% professional mixed martial arts fights, 467 minutes of his life, in a cage, in his underwear, getting beaten by trained killers. So this is not a sport that has happy endings, ever.
No. I mean, yeah, it's getting tough to watch at this point. Like Darren Elkins last night. I mean, that was tough to watch. I did not like how Elkins was reacting to any of the shots that Pierce was throwing. Those front kicks up the middle.
Oh God, yeah. I thought the very first one that Pierce landed was going to separate his head. It looked like he landed it like Machida landed that one, or that Vitor landed against Machida a while back. And then what's his name? Steven Seagal came out of the woodwork and said that he taught him that kick. Or maybe that was Anderson Silva. I forget which one it was, but one of them had that great front kick up the middle, and Pierce was landing that all night last night. But credit to Darren Elkins. I mean, the guy is one of the toughest human beings on the face of the planet. I mean, he's a credit to the sport. The guy's an ultra veteran. There's never been any quit in that man, and he puts on great fights all the time.
Yeah, I mean, he's respect to Elkins. Respect to Elkins. The guy's tough. He did not want to quit. They were like, "Should we stop the fight?" And Elkins was like, "No, don't stop the fight. It's a fight."
And I was screaming, "Stop the fight!"
Me too. We all were saying that.
Oh man,
good stuff. All right, let us keep moving on. We have the co-main events. Paddy Pimblett going against Jared Gordon. Paddy Pimblett, 27 years old, 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. Jared Gordon, 34 years old, 5'9" with a 68-inch reach. Paddy Pimblett, 7 years younger, 1-inch height advantage and a 5-inch reach advantage. Pimblett, 5-0 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Luigi Vandermini, won by first-round knockout, first-round submission against Cazula Vargas, and then a second-round sub against Jordan Levitt. Jared Gordon, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Fishgold, decision win against Chavez, decision win against Selecki, submission loss to Grant Dawson, then a decision win against Leonardo Santos. And it's another one where I'm picking Pimblett to win this fight, but we'll talk about the line in a little bit. I saw it like a couple days ago at like minus 180, minus 190, and even there I was like, no, I can't get there. And now over the past like 48 hours, it's just gotten completely smashed. Like money is pouring in on Paddy Pimblett. And I just can't personally trust him. I think he gets a finish at some point in this fight. You know, he has power on the feet. He has very good grappling, very dangerous submission grappler. But, you know, he's a guy that has, in some of these fights, I mean, there's been some very sketchy moments. Like against Luigi, he got cracked. I mean, the guy's striking defense is 41%. Against Cazula Vargas, he got taken down and controlled for a little bit. I mean, there's been these moments where he just does not look good, and then he kind of pulls it around. Like even against Levitt, arguably won the first round in the fight his last time out. Laying a price like this on Paddy, it just seems a little bit dangerous to me. So it's a fun fight, but a fight I just don't really see myself getting to the betting window for. Weezy, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, this one, you know, okay, so Jared's 34 years old. Paddy's still only 27, you know, so Paddy's, you know, the prospect here. He's taller. He's got a 5-inch reach advantage. I think that's significant. And he's only got 2 less pro fights than Jared Gordon, but about 115 minutes less in the pro cage in comparison to Gordon. And Gordon's got 8 more UFC fights and about 110 more minutes in the UFC cage. So Gordon's a lot more experienced here. It's Pimblett who's got a 100% finish rate in the UFC, while Jared has got a 14% finish rate in the UFC. But that's telling us that because Jared Gordon has been finished in every single one of his UFC fights, Jared Gordon is 6-0 in decisions in the UFC. I'm going to repeat that. Jared Gordon is 6-0 in decisions in the UFC. Paddy Pimblett is a horrible minute winner. The guy blocks punches with his face. He gives up takedowns, and he shoots. He goes for submissions off his back. And guess what? You're not submitting Jared Gordon. It's going to be very difficult to do that. I think Gordon can win minutes here, man. I mean, the guy is 6-0 in decisions, and Paddy Pimblett, I mean, fucking the guy is a moment winner, not a minute winner. When you lose a round to Jordan Levitt, that's bad because Levitt doesn't have the same wrestling that like somebody like Jared Gordon does. And the other thing that he doesn't have is that blanket top control. I mean, we're talking about 130-minute sample size of fights here for Jared Gordon, and he's controlling his opponents 39% of the time, and he's only being controlled 14.5% of the time. So he's out-controlling his opponents at better than almost a 3-to-1 ratio while attempting almost as many takedowns as his opponents. While Pimblett's attempted 5 and his opponents have attempted 10, but Pimblett gets 17% control time and he allows 50% control time. So I think Pimblett wins this fight inside the distance if he does win it, but maybe a decision-only prop on Jared Gordon here could be a really cheeky way to play this fight. In addition to that, not only does Jared have the experience advantage, not only does he have the control time and grappling efficiency advantage, he's got a very, very clear strength of schedule advantage here too. And look, if you're worried about Paddy Pimblett drowning Jared Gordon, it took Grant Dawson, about almost the full 3 rounds to submit Jared Gordon. And if you're not, I mean, if Grant Dawson takes that long to submit you, Grant Dawson would fucking 10-8 Paddy Pimblett in all 3 rounds and probably submit him. You know, those guys are not even on the same level. So Jared Gordon's been in there with a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion in Leonardo Santos, one of the best grapplers in any division in Grant Dawson, a fantastic grappler in Joe Selecki, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt in Danny Chavez, who never uses it, and we never really see Chavez's grappling. And then before that, a guy that's a pure grappler from the Cage Warriors scene in Chris Fishgold. He's been through this over and over and over again. I'm going to let the hype drive that Pimblett line as far as it can go, and I'm going to get on that Jared Gordon side, and I'll probably be looking at Jared Gordon by decision.
Yeah. I won't be touching the Gordon money line, but that decision only makes a ton of sense. I do think he gets finished at some point in this fight, but if this fight does go to decision, like you said, Gordon, what, 6-0 in decisions?
6-0, man, at the UFC level at least.
And then Paddy's not a minute winner. I mean, losing minutes to Jordan Levitt, losing some moments to Cazola Vargas, losing some moments to Luigi Vandermini. So I get it. I get it a lot. And I'm not touching. You can't. Plus minus 150, minus 252 for Paddy Pimblett here. I mean, it's wild. I mean, he's a bigger favorite now than he was against Levitt, which is wild.
Yeah, I mean, against Jared Gordon. I mean, Leonardo Santos, Grant Dawson, Joe Selecki. I mean, all those guys beat Paddy Pimblett.
Man,
well, not Santos anymore. Santos like 43 now. Yeah. But I mean, Santos was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion. I mean, the guy's got legitimate grappling. It's just that he's old now, So he looked horrible there in that Gordon fight, and Gordon did what he was supposed to do.
Yep. I think instead of the money line of Paddy Pimblett, I think the finish only could be something to look at. I think it'd be much better than that money line. And then, like the decision only for Gordon, I think those are two solid ways to look at this fight.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is an intriguing spot for me. And it's going to be a fun fight. It's a Paddy Pimblett fight. We're looking forward to this one.
Yes, sir. Main event time. Weezy, unfortunately, we have to talk about it. And it's crazy we're saying that about a main event, but it is a Magomed Ankalaev main event. A guy that he's so good, but just not the most exciting fighter in the world. But he is going against Jan Blachowicz. Blachowicz, 39 years old, 6'2" with a 78-inch reach. Ankalaev, 30 years old, 6'3" with a 75-inch reach. Ankalaev, 9 years younger, 1-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach disadvantage. I don't know. I feel like this fight could play out very, very boring, very slow paced. But yeah, I got to go Ankalaev here. He is a decent sized favorite. I won't be touching the money line, but I like that he's 9 years younger. He's a really good fighter. He really is. He's well rounded. He can mix in some takedowns. I went back and watched a couple of his fights. I think the Krella fight, he went out there, got multiple takedowns, and Blachowicz typically has solid takedown defense, but did not like how he looked on bottom against Alexander Rakic. Took him down at one point, just had nothing off his back, and Glover the Sheriff, no shame in that, but he did not look good off his back there as well. So I can see Magomed Ankalaev taking him down, winning some minutes down there, but on the feet, I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be very close. Both guys have very solid power. Both guys pretty low volume. I could see this being a little bit of a staring contest on the feet at times, but I don't know. I got to go Ankalaev here, but he's a big favorite, and don't really see myself playing that. Weezy, thoughts on this main event?
Yeah, it's. I feel the same way. I like Magomed Ankalaev here quite a bit. The control time ratio that he's got is it's good. 28.58% control time for, and 4.88% control time allowed. So that is almost a 6-to-1 ratio of control time for to control time allowed for Magomed Ankalaev, despite the fact that Ankalaev's opponents have actually attempted one more takedown than Magomed has. So I love Ankalaev's ability to be able to win minutes on the ground here. And then on the feet, he's just such a dangerous counter striker. That's why his fights are boring, because he's best when his opponent attacks first. And his opponent is going to be aware of that, so it winds up being a low volume staring contest, because neither fighter wants to give their opponent what they want, which is the ability to counter. So I think it's going to be slow on the feet. I might be looking at some overs for this fight. But both of these guys land more significant strikes than their opponents. They both throw more volume than their opponents. It's just Magomed's power numbers are about twice as good as Jan's. And Magomed's been knocked down once, and so has Jan Blachowicz. But Błachowicz has only been dropped once in 18 fights. So yeah, I could see this one going the distance here. Błachowicz, 14% control time for, 28% control time allowed. Błachowicz, the better ratio and the more experienced opponents overall, and he's got the better wins in comparison to Ankalaev as well. So I definitely like Blachowicz' strength of schedule advantage here. I think he's got that great power on the feet, and he could certainly hurt Magomed Ankalaev. The one thing that we do know about Magomed is the only time that he ever saw any adversity in his 111 minutes in the UFC cage, he fucking completely panicked and pulled a complete amateur move, tapping with literally no time left in the fight. So there's still a very significant possibility in my mind that Ankalaev is just a really good hammer and a really shitty nail, but nobody's ever putting him in the position where he's the nail, so it's hard to find out. So that's what's keeping me away from betting this Ankalaev money line is what if Jan lands a big shot? Are we going to see this dude melt like he melted when he was in Paul Craig's triangle? That was really only slapped on for about 3 seconds before he tapped. So I don't know, man. Hopefully it's a good fight. Hopefully Magomed brings a little more pace and a little more ability to be able to push a decent fight here for 15 to 25 minutes instead of just like that Santos fight was the worst. It was just a horrible fight. So I hope we don't see one like that, but that should be a decent main event. I'm rooting for Jan Blachowicz, but I think that Ankalaev gets the job done.
Yeah, you got to root for Jan Blachowicz. Magomed Ankalaev has a chance. Oh, it's gonna be terrible. But yeah, I would have much rather that this pay-per-view took a big hit with Yuri getting off of it and Glover, and even Glover. They wanted Glover to fight Ankalaev. Like, I wouldn't have minded that matchup at all. Glover versus Ankalaev, I thought that'd been much more fun than Błachowicz versus Ankalaev. It's just a weird situation here. But yeah, no interest in betting the money line. It looks like Ankalaev is a pretty decent sized favorite. He opened up minus 200, currently minus 255, and then Błachowicz is currently plus 215. Yeah, I can't touch it.
I'm not going to touch it either, dude. We'll look and see what the overs are. Once all these props start to drop, it'll get a little more interesting. But this is a great card from top to bottom. Not the best main event, but a lot of great prospects, a lot of really intriguing matchups. That Mitchell Topuria fight's going to be fire. Let's just hope that Ilia makes weight and that fight happens. I want that fight to happen.
Yeah, it better happen. It better happen because that is the fight I'm looking forward to the most. But yeah, Weezy, we did it. 14 fights. We did it there. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. I think we're good. So yeah, we got it done. Weezy, let the people know where they can find you, what you have going on throughout the rest of the week.
Yeah, we got only 2 more cards left in the rest of the year here. So let's try to stack cash tickets like flapjacks and finish this year strong. You can find me right on the MMA Engine YouTube channel with Brady tomorrow, and we're going to be doing probability, looking at all the time props on this card and trying to find ways to get some violence numbers, get some overs that make a lot of sense with the analytics. Also on Tuesday night, 10 o'clock Central Time, you can find me on my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy. We're going to do Just the Tip with Uncle Weezy, break down all these fights from a stats, tape study perspective, give you my track bets, finish with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. And on Wednesday, you can find me on Pub Sports Radio for the DFS show, also on Saturday for the watch along. Yeah, God bless each and every one of you guys. Thanks for hanging out, and let's stack them high for UFC 282.
Yep. Please leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you all so much for hanging out. My prediction video should be out maybe late Monday, early Tuesday. Twitter, DFS_numbers. Instagram, DFS by the numbers. Best of luck for UFC 282. We'll talk to you guys soon. See you later.